You're not broken. But summer is making you feel like you are. And nobody around you seems to notice because they're too busy being exactly what summer wants them to be. Excited. Available. Outdoors. Thrilled. And you're sitting there watching all of it quietly, wondering why the season everyone calls the best time of the year feels to you like something you have to survive. Here's what nobody tells you. There is a specific psychological reason your nervous system reacts to summer the way it does. It's not a mood. It's not ingratitude. It's not something to fix. And by the end of this video, you're going to understand yourself in a way that 3 months of August guilt never could. But first, let me ask you something. When September arrives, do you feel that specific wave of relief that's almost embarrassing in how big it is? Like you can finally breathe again? If yes, stay right here, because that relief is data. And it's been trying to tell you something for years. Let's start with something nobody says out loud. Summer is the only season that comes with a personality attached. Nobody hands you a checklist in November. Nobody looks at you sideways in February and says, "Why aren't you more excited about this?" But summer arrives and suddenly there are unspoken rules. Your mood should lift. Your social calendar should fill. Your energy should match the sun. And if it doesn't, if you're the person sitting in a cool room while everyone else posts golden hour photos, you don't just feel different. You feel like something is wrong with you. Here's the truth. There is nothing wrong with you, but there is something very specific happening inside you, and psychology has been quietly building the case for it for years. The first thing psychology says about people who struggle with summer, their nervous systems are processing the world more intensely than most people around them. Researcher Elaine Aron spent years studying what she called the highly sensitive person. Roughly 20% of the population, she found, has a nervous system that picks up more noise, more heat, more stimulation, more input from the environment at every single moment. And summer, with its relentless heat and loud social energy, and the expectation that you be available and enthusiastic, is essentially a sensory assault that never stops. Think about what that actually means. The heat alone, not the idea of heat, the actual physical sensation of warmth pressing in from every direction that for a highly sensitive nervous system doesn't just feel like discomfort. It feels like low-grade dread, a background hum of overwhelm that follows you from June to August and that you've been trying to explain to people your whole life without ever having the right words for it. You're not being dramatic. Your nervous system is loudly telling you something that other people's systems are quietly ignoring. And you've been spending years apologizing for information your own body was trying to give you. The second thing is the social pressure. And this one is almost worse than the heat. Because at least with heat, you can go inside. With social pressure, it follows you everywhere. Summer does something very specific to people's availability. Schedules clear. Group chats wake up. The "we should all do something" energy arrives and doesn't leave until September. And if you're someone who finds that particular kind of endless availability quietly exhausting, you know how impossible it is to say that out loud. Because how do you explain without sounding like you're complaining about having friends that the energy of everyone being free at the same time actually costs you something? That the constant ambient pressure to show up and be present and perform enthusiasm drains something in you that takes days to refill? You can't. So you don't. You smile and you show up and you perform a version of summer enthusiasm that isn't quite yours, and then you come home exhausted in a way that has no simple explanation. And then comes the guilt, which is almost worse than the exhaustion itself, because you're not allowed to just be tired. You have to feel bad about being tired. You catch yourself thinking, "I should want this." And when you don't, that thought curdles into something darker. The kind of quiet self-questioning that follows you all the way into August, like a second shadow. The third thing is the sleep. And this one genuinely surprises people. Summer doesn't affect your mood in some vague way. It disrupts your sleep chemistry in a very specific biological sense. Here's how it works. Light suppresses melatonin. More hours of daylight means more melatonin suppression throughout the day. Later sleep onset at night and for millions of people meaningfully worse sleep quality across 3 consecutive months. Research tracking people across seasons found that average sleep duration in summer is around 16 minutes shorter per night than in winter. 16 minutes sounds like nothing, but 16 minutes every night for 90 days is not nothing. That compounds. And if you're already someone whose mood and anxiety and emotional regulation are sensitive to sleep disruption, summer isn't just hot and loud. Summer is also quietly sleep depriving you for 3 months straight. And you've been blaming yourself for the irritability, the low energy, the feeling that something is slightly off, and you can't name it when part of what you were actually feeling was exhaustion. You thought you were just in a bad mood. You were also tired. And nobody connected those 2 things for you. The 4th thing is something almost nobody talks about, and it might be the most important one. Seasons carry emotional memory. Your brain is not good at separating then from now when the environmental cues are identical. The smell of sunscreen, the quality of late afternoon light in July, the specific sound of a lawnmower on a hot, quiet street. These things are time machines, whether you agree to the trip or not. Maybe summer used to be the hardest time of year for you. Maybe school was the only structure that made your days feel manageable, and summer took that away and left you with nothing but unstructured time and the pressure to enjoy it. Maybe a relationship ended in July. Maybe you grew up in a house where the heat made everyone tense and short and loud, and your nervous system learned very early that summer meant something to brace for. And so when summer arrives now, and you feel that vague, nameless resistance before anything has even happened, yet before a single bad thing has occurred, there is a real possibility that your nervous system is not reacting to this summer. It is reacting to a previous one you thought you were already over, one your brain filed under dangerous years ago and never updated. Now here is the part that actually matters, the part most people in your life have never said to you, because everyone has been too busy trying to convince you to enjoy the beach. Preferring quieter, darker, cooler environments is not a character flaw. Research on what psychologists call thinking introversion, the specific dimension of introversion defined by deep engagement with your own inner world, consistently shows that people who are most comfortable inside with their thoughts in calm, controlled environments tend to have a richer inner life, deeper self-awareness, and a capacity for sustained introspection that most people spend years in therapy actively trying to build. You didn't choose the heat to never work for you. But somewhere in the years of opting out of the beach trips and the rooftop parties and the endless social availability of summer, you built something, an interior world that actually sustains you. A self-awareness that most people are only beginning to find in their 30s and 40s. A comfort with your own company that the world tells people to chase and you already have. That is not a consolation prize. That is a real and serious thing. So, what does all of this mean? It means the version of you that closes the blinds in July, that feels relief when clouds roll in, that counts down to September with a quiet urgency nobody around you seems to share, is not failing at summer. That version of you is paying attention. Paying attention to what costs you. Paying attention to what restores you. Paying attention to the difference between what you actually need and what the season tells you that you should need. Most people go their entire lives without getting that specific about themselves. They follow the current. They perform the enthusiasm. They post the golden hour photo and feel vaguely empty afterward and never understand why. You understand why. You've always understood. You just thought understanding something about yourself that diverged from the majority meant something was wrong with you. It doesn't. It means you've been paying attention. And here is the last thing. That relief in September, that wave that comes when the heat finally breaks, when the social pressure lifts, when you can close the window and make tea and exist in the quiet without anyone asking why you're not outside, that relief is not weakness. That relief is your nervous system finally getting what it needed for 3 months. That relief is data. Real data about who you are and what you need, and what kind of environment allows you to be fully yourself. And data like that is worth more than any beach trip you ever politely declined. You're not broken. You're not ungrateful. You're not missing something. You just know something about yourself that most people are still trying to figure out. And that is not nothing. That is everything. Comment September if you've ever felt that quiet relief when summer ends. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. They'll understand from the very first sentence.